Do you ever find yourself pausing for a moment, maybe while making a cup of tea or looking out the window, and your mind drifts to the future, not just tomorrow or next week, but the far future? If you're over 75 or even approaching that age, it's natural for thoughts about the end of life to cross your mind. We often avoid talking about it openly, don't we? It feels a bit taboo, perhaps even frightening. We see it portrayed in movies or hear stories, and sometimes those portrayals fuel our anxieties. There's a painful reality that this topic brings up uncomfortable feelings, a sense of the unknown, maybe even fear. But what if I told you that much of that fear comes from not knowing, from the hidden truths about this stage of life? What if understanding these truths could actually bring you peace, reduce anxiety, and help you live your remaining years more fully? It might sound surprising, but facing these realities can be incredibly empowering. In this video, we're going to explore 5 hidden truths about death after 75 that every senior really must know. These aren't scary facts, but rather insights that can change your perspective and help you prepare emotionally and practically. I encourage you to watch right to the very end, because I'll share something towards the conclusion that might genuinely surprise you and change how you think about this whole subject. Let's ease into our first hidden truth, which is that for most people, especially after 75, death is rarely a sudden, unexpected event like we often see in dramas. Instead, it's typically a gradual process, a slow winding down of the body's systems over months, sometimes even years. Now, this might sound a bit bleak at first mention, but understanding this truth is actually incredibly empowering. It means that for the vast majority of us, there will be time to adjust, time to prepare, time to say what needs to be said, and time to experience life in a different rhythm. Think about it. As we age, our bodies naturally become less resilient. Illnesses that a younger person might bounce back from quickly can become chronic conditions for us. This isn't a failure, it's just part of the human journey. Our organs might not work with the same efficiency, our energy levels might decrease, and we might find ourselves dealing with more aches and pains, or conditions like heart disease, diabetes, or kidney issues. These aren't direct causes of death in the moment, but they contribute to an overall decline in the body's ability to keep functioning robustly. It's like a complex machine that's had many years of good service. Some parts start to wear out, and the whole system requires more maintenance and eventually slows down. Acknowledging this gradual decline is crucial because it shifts our focus. Instead of living in fear of a sudden end, which statistically is less likely for most seniors, we can focus on managing our health and our lives during this phase. This means working closely with your doctors to manage chronic conditions, making lifestyle choices that support your current health, things like gentle exercise, a balanced diet adapted to your needs, and getting enough rest. It's about living well within your changing capabilities, rather than fighting against the inevitable aging process. Acceptance is key here. It's not about giving up, but about accepting the reality of aging and adapting your life to it. This phase can still be incredibly rich and meaningful. It might involve slowing down, finding joy in simpler things, spending more time with loved ones, or pursuing hobbies that are less physically demanding. Understanding that this gradual process is the norm can relieve the anxiety of waiting for something sudden and catastrophic. It gives you back control by allowing you to focus on the present moment and the quality of life you have now. Knowing that the path ahead is likely to be a gentle slope rather than a cliff edge. This gradual winding down also brings us to our second hidden truth, which is perhaps even more empowering. You have significantly more control over how you die than you might ever have imagined. This isn't about choosing the moment, but about influencing the circumstances, the medical interventions you receive, and the environment you're in during your final phase of life. We live in a time where medical technology can do amazing things to keep bodies functioning, sometimes long after the person's quality of life has severely diminished. And this is where your power lies. You have the right to choose what medical treatments you do and do not want to receive, especially as you reach the end of life. Have you heard of things like advance directives or living wills? These are incredibly powerful tools. They are legal documents where you can specify your wishes regarding medical treatment if you become unable to make those decisions for yourself. For example, you can state whether you want to be put on a ventilator if you can't breathe on your own, whether you want feeding tubes, or whether you want CPR if your heart stops. This is not about giving up hope. It's about ensuring that your values and wishes are respected when you are at your most vulnerable. It's about choosing comfort and dignity over potentially painful or invasive treatments that may only prolong suffering without offering any real chance of recovery. But these documents are only effective if you create them and, perhaps more importantly, if you have open and honest conversations with your loved ones and your doctor about your wishes. This is the proactive part of having control. It's often difficult to talk about. Isn't it? Our families might find it upsetting, or we might feel like we're being morbid. But imagine the relief it can bring. For you, knowing your wishes will be followed, and for your family, who won't have to make agonizing decisions on your behalf during an emotional crisis. Having these conversations and putting your wishes in writing is a profound act of self-respect and love for your family. It shifts the power from unexpected medical emergencies or default hospital procedures to your own conscious choices. It means you can choose, for instance, to focus on palliative care, which is specialized medical care for people with serious illnesses. It focuses on providing relief from the symptoms and stress of a serious illness, whatever the diagnosis. The goal is to improve quality of life for both the patient and the family. It's not the same as hospice care, which is specifically for people nearing the end of life, usually with a prognosis of 6 months or less. Palliative care can be received at any stage of a serious illness, alongside curative treatment. But understanding and seeking out palliative care options as your health declines ensures that your comfort is prioritized. And if you reach the stage where you are nearing the end, hospice care can provide incredibly valuable support, focusing entirely on comfort, pain management, and emotional and spiritual support for both you and your family, often allowing you to spend your final days in your own home surrounded by loved ones. If that is your wish, this level of control, this ability to shape your final experience, is truly one of the most significant hidden truths about death after 75. It transforms the unknown into something you can actively participate in planning, bringing a profound sense of peace and agency during a time that might otherwise feel completely out of your hands. Now that we've explored the gradual nature of decline and the power you have in planning your end-of-life care, let's move on to something else that often causes fear, but is often far less frightening in reality than we imagine. This brings us to our third hidden truth. The physical process of dying itself is often peaceful, not painful or traumatic. This is a truth that goes against many of the dramatic portrayals we see in media, which often focus on moments of intense suffering or struggle. In reality, for most people who are dying from natural causes or chronic illness in their later years, the body has a way of shutting down gradually. As the body weakens, the need for food and drink diminishes. This isn't starvation or dehydration in the way we usually think of it. It's a natural response as the body conserves energy and its systems slow down. Often, hunger and thirst subside. People may sleep more and more, spending most of their time in a state of rest. This isn't coma. It's a natural withdrawal as their energy levels decrease significantly. Breathing patterns might change, becoming shallower or with pauses. Circulation decreases, which is why extremities might feel cool to the touch. While some of these physical changes might look concerning to an observer who isn't familiar with the process, they are often not distressing for the person experiencing them. Pain, which is a major fear for many, can often be effectively managed with medication in the vast majority of cases, especially with good palliative or hospice care. The goal of this care is precisely to prevent suffering and ensure comfort. Medications can be adjusted as needed to keep pain under control, allowing the person to be relaxed and peaceful. Thinking about this truth can be incredibly reassuring. It takes away the fear of a terrifying final struggle. Instead, it paints a picture of a body gently letting go, a process that is often more about peace and quiet withdrawal than it is about pain or panic. It's important for families to understand this too, as witnessing these changes can be difficult if they aren't prepared. Education about the dying process, often provided by hospice or palliative care teams, can help loved ones understand that these signs are often indicators of the body naturally nearing its end, not signs of distress that require aggressive intervention. This understanding allows families to focus on providing comfort, presence, and love, rather than feeling panicked or helpless. Knowing that the physical journey towards the end is typically a gentle slowing down, rather than a violent fight, can ease a great deal of anxiety not only for the person who is dying, but also for those who care about them. It allows for a focus on emotional and spiritual comfort during this time, rather than being consumed by fear of physical pain. And speaking of comfort and connection, this ties beautifully into our fourth hidden truth, which is that relationships often become more important, not less, as you near the end of life. As physical energy wanes and the focus shifts inward, the external world might seem less pressing, but the inner world, particularly the world of connections and relationships, often comes into sharper focus. Many people find that during this final phase, unresolved issues with loved ones become more significant. There can be a deep desire to mend fences, express forgiveness, or simply say, "I love you," and "thank you." These moments of reconciliation and heartfelt communication can be incredibly healing, not just for the person who is dying, but for their family as well. Time spent with loved ones often takes on a profound quality. It might not be about doing grand activities, but about simply being together, holding hands, sharing memories, listening to favorite music, or just sitting in comfortable silence. The presence of loved ones can provide immense comfort and reduce feelings of loneliness or fear. It's a time for quiet intimacy, for reinforcing the bonds that have shaped a lifetime. This isn't limited to family. Old friends, neighbors, or even caregivers can become incredibly important sources of comfort and connection. For some, expressing gratitude becomes a central theme. Thanking people who have made a difference in their lives, acknowledging the love and support they've received. This act of expressing gratitude can bring a deep sense of peace and fulfillment. It's a way of affirming the value of the relationships and experiences that have shaped their life. And, for the loved ones, receiving this gratitude and having the opportunity to reciprocate those feelings is a precious gift, creating memories that will be cherished long after. This emphasis on relationships also includes saying goodbye. While incredibly difficult, having the opportunity to say goodbye, to express love and sorrow, is a vital part of the grieving process, both for the person dying and for those who will be left behind. It allows for a sense of closure and ensures that important feelings are communicated. Understanding that relationships often deepen and become more central during this time encourages us to nurture those connections. Now, it reminds us that while physical health is important, our emotional and relational wealth is a source of immense comfort and strength as we age. It suggests that investing in our relationships throughout life, resolving conflicts, and expressing love regularly, prepares us emotionally for the end in a way that nothing else can. It's about prioritizing people over things, connection over achievement, especially as the horizon draws nearer. This focus on the emotional and relational aspects of life as we age naturally leads us to our fifth and final hidden truth, which might shift your perspective on what the very end is truly like. Our final hidden truth is that the very end of life is rarely marked by grand epiphanies or dramatic pronouncements, but rather by a quiet finding of peace, often in the smallest, simplest things. We sometimes imagine a deathbed scene where a person suddenly has a profound realization about the meaning of life, or delivers a final, impactful speech. While moments of clarity can occur, especially if pain is well managed, for most people, the final hours or days are more about letting go, finding comfort, and settling into a state of peace that comes from within. This peace often stems from acceptance of the life they have lived, the good and the bad, acceptance of the journey's end. It's less about resolving all the world's mysteries in a sudden flash of insight, and more about finding contentment with the present moment. Peace can be found in the quiet presence of a loved one holding your hand, the sound of familiar music, the feeling of a soft blanket, or even just the absence of pain. It's about sensory comfort and emotional reassurance. It's less about thinking and more about feeling and simply being. People often revisit memories during this time, sometimes through stories or photos, and often find peace in reflecting on positive experiences, moments of love, and simple joys. It's not usually a time for deep regret or existential angst, especially if the person has had time to process these feelings beforehand, perhaps with the help of loved ones, spiritual advisors, or even therapists. The natural process of dying often involves a withdrawal from the external world, and this withdrawal can facilitate a state of calm and inner peace. It's a time when the hustle and bustle of life fades away, and what truly matters comes into focus. And what often matters most are those quiet connections, the feeling of being loved, and the comfort of knowing you are not alone. Understanding this truth, that the end is often characterized by quiet peace rather than dramatic insight, can be incredibly freeing. It takes the pressure off feeling like you need to have some grand revelation or tie up every single loose end in a perfect bow. It suggests that focusing on living a life that feels authentic and peaceful now, cultivating inner calm, and nurturing loving connections, is the best preparation for finding peace at the end. It's about letting go of the expectation that the ending must be momentous or profound in a dramatic sense. True profundity often lies in the quiet dignity of acceptance, the comfort of love, and the simple peace of just being. It's about finding meaning not in a final, grand statement, but in the sum of a life lived, appreciated in its final moments through quiet reflection and gentle presence. This is the subtle, yet deeply significant, final hidden truth. It encourages us to seek peace and contentment in our lives every day, knowing that this inner state is our greatest resource when we eventually face the end. And that's something I wanted to share with you towards the end. That might surprise you. It's this understanding these truths about death isn't about dwelling on the morbid. It's actually about empowering you to live your remaining years, however many there may be, with less fear and more purpose. We've talked about how death is often a gradual decline, giving you time. We've explored the significant control you have over your end-of-life care through planning and communication. We've looked at how the physical process is often peaceful with proper care. We've discussed how relationships become even more vital. And finally, we've touched on how the very end is typically about finding quiet peace, not grand revelations. Knowing these things shifts the focus entirely, doesn't it? It moves from fearing an uncontrollable, painful, sudden event to understanding a natural process you can navigate with awareness, dignity, and surrounded by love. It allows you to stop worrying about the unknown and start focusing on living well today. It gives you the power to have those important conversations with your family and doctors, to make your wishes known, and to ensure that your final chapter is lived according to your values. This isn't a conversation about giving up. It's a conversation about taking control, finding peace, and ensuring that your final days reflect the wisdom and grace you've accumulated throughout your life. It's about realizing that preparing for the end is one of the most life-affirming things you can do. It frees up your mental and emotional energy from fear and worry, allowing you to invest it in enjoying the present moment, strengthening your connections, and finding joy in everyday life. Think about the relief that comes from knowing your affairs are in order, your wishes are known, and your loved ones are prepared. That peace of mind is invaluable. It's a gift you give yourself and your family. This journey of aging and eventually dying is a fundamental part of the human experience. It connects us to everyone who has come before us and everyone who will come after. And understanding its hidden truths allows us to walk this path with less trepidation and more grace. It allows us to embrace this final stage of life not as something to be feared, but as a time for reflection, connection, and finding deep, abiding peace. If this conversation has sparked thoughts or feelings in you, I encourage you to share them. Talking about these things openly is the first step to removing the fear and mystery. Have you thought about your own end-of-life wishes? Have you had these conversations with your family? Share your experiences or your questions in the comments below. Your perspective could help someone else who is grappling with these very same thoughts. If you found value in this video, if it gave you something to think about or offered a measure of reassurance, please do give it a like. It helps others who might need to hear this message find it. And if you haven't already, consider subscribing to the channel. We talk about all sorts of things related to living your best life as you age, and there's much more helpful content to come. Remember, gaining knowledge about this natural transition isn't morbid, it's wise, it's empowering. It allows you to live your life fully, all the way to the end. Live your best life at every age, armed with knowledge and surrounded by love.